Hi, I'm Russ Briault with the Shroud of Turin Education Project, and welcome to the Shroud Report. And our guest today, Dr. Gilbert Lavoie. Thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be with you.
Now, Dr. Lavoie, you are board certified in
internal medicine and also occupational medicine.
Okay.
And I've gotten interested in the Shroud by accident back when I was a freshman in college. I was in Boston. I went into an old bookstore there and went to the back of the bookstore, and there I saw a book called A Doctor at Calvary by Dr. Pierre Barbet.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason I picked the book up was that I was in pre-med at the time and I saw the word doctor. So I picked it up, started reading about the Shroud of Turin for the first time, and I was so fascinated by what Dr. Barbet had said that I decided that maybe in the future I would look at this. But then I forgot about it until 1978, but many years later. Then I was in the practice of medicine in the Boston area, and one Sunday afternoon I opened the Boston Globe and there was a picture of the Shroud.
Mm-hmm.
And I remembered the book that I had read many years before, and I saw what they were telling us about the Shroud of Turin exhibit that was going to take place in the fall of that year, and I decided to go. I'll have to tell you that at the beginning, when I began to study this and look at this, I started as a skeptic, but as time went on, I realized that there was no question that there was a crucified man under this cloth. So from then on, I began studying and working, and got involved in the research on the Shroud.
Well, that's wonderful. Now, so you got involved by reading Dr. Pierre Barbet's book, and then recently, last year, you published your own book. And I'll give you a plug here. I've read the book. It's very good. It's called Unlocking the Secrets of the Shroud. And Dr. Lavoie also has a companion video on the same thing. And available. How does someone order this book?
And you get it from Amazon.com, or go to any bookstore. Just tell my name and the name of the book, Unlocking the Secrets of the Shroud, and it's published by Thomas More.
Okay. All right. Wonderful. And now, as a medical doctor, what way is it the medical aspects of the Shroud that were most important to you, or?
Right. I was looking for some objective data. What was this? Was this a painting? Were these truly blood marks? Were they real blood marks? Was there truly a crucified man under this cloth? Those are the questions I had when I went to Turin in 1978.
Mm-hmm.
And with time and effort, slowly I began to learn more and more about the Shroud. And in fact, one of the first things I did, I became very interested in Jewish burial customs.
Okay.
And
because that would be key then, because you would, I guess, if the Shroud is from first century and that of an image of a Jewish male, then it would have to be in accordance with what the practices were.
Right. You have to sort of, if you wanted to understand blood marks and body image, I felt that the first important thing would be to really look into Jewish burial customs and see if it was compatible, what you saw in the Shroud. And when I began reading all the books on the Shroud, because I was interested after I had seen it, I found that there was a controversy regarding Jewish burial customs in this sense. The Shroud of, if you look in the Gospel of John states that Jesus was buried according to the Jewish burial custom. Now, the proponents, there were two camps. The people that did not believe it was the Shroud of Jesus said, look, the Jewish burial custom says to wash the body prior to burial.
Mm-hmm.
And look at this man. He has blood all over him. Therefore, this man was not washed. Jesus was. And therefore, this can't be the Shroud of Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the other camp said, well, wait a minute. The Sabbath was imminent. There was no time to get water. And so he was buried almost according to the Jewish custom, but not quite. We couldn't wash him. We couldn't get the water. So when my wife and I started, this is what we started with. And we decided we'd try to explore this mystery in a scholastic way. We went back to the older books, Jewish books, the Shulchan Aruch, the Mishnah, and we traced this back all the way to the Mishnah, which was actually written about 150 years after the birth of Jesus, but it is supposed to contain and I'm sure it does contain the oral tradition of Moses.
Right.
So in studying that, we came and made a fantastic discovery. It turns out that there's an exception to the rule of washing, and that is if a man dies a violent death and blood flows at the time of death, the body is not washed, but is simply buried in a sheet, wrapped in a sheet.
A single
That's
sheet.
right, just wrapped in a linen sheet, buried. So what we have on the shroud is compatible historically to what we read in the gospel. Jesus was buried according to the Jewish custom, and he was buried according to the custom of not washing because he died a violent death and there was blood on his body.
And which is why we see an image of a man that is still covered with blood, blood from the side, blood from the scourge wounds and the crown, and even from the nails in the wrists. There's blood on the arms, and now the I read your chapter in your book, and they have an interesting way of measuring back then, and now they used. Explain how they measured the actual volume of blood.
It's very important when you find out what's important and what's not at that time, and even to Orthodox Jews today, that's still important. And what it is that they quantitated and they qualitated the blood that flowed at the time from a man. Now, if blood flows during life, that is not important. Okay, they can be washed. That's not a problem. But it's the blood that flows at the time of death that's important. The blood of the soul, in a sense, the person dies. It's life's blood. That's what's important.
Okay.
Life's blood, and that's qualitated at the time that flows at the time of death. The other thing, it's quantitated, the amount of blood that flows. And it is if it's a quarter of a log of blood that flows at the time of death, and a quarter of a log is, the measurement is this: 6 eggs, I guess, this just regular normal eggs, I don't know the size of eggs that they use at that time, but 6 eggs, I guess chicken eggs, 6 eggs was a log, and a quarter of a log would have been an egg and a half, about a small cup of wine. If that amount of blood flowed at the time of death, then that was considered life's blood, and that could not be washed off the body, but had to remain on the body. And it's fascinating that they're so concerned about this that if the blood that flows during life mixes with the blood that flows at the time of death, that's considered mingled blood, and mingled blood has the same rule that can't be washed off of the body.
Because if it's life's blood, it's considered part of the body.
Exactly.
And has to be buried with the body.
Exactly.
That's why they can't wash the body.
Right.
Okay. And the man on the shroud, certainly with the side wound, would have obviously lost more than a quarter log of blood.
Sure. And during that entire time, so it's very interesting now when you read the Gospel of John and you read about the wounds and the crucifixion and the wound of the side and all these things, that you realize you look at that blood, or now I look at that blood in an entirely different way, because on that body is life's blood. Is life's blood. It is, but it's mingled blood. In other words, blood that flowed during life mixed with blood that flowed at the time of death,
right?
And that cannot be washed off the body. And it's that if you really get into the chapter, it gets more and more exciting because you find that life's blood is considered the blood of atonement for sins.
So under the old method of animal sacrifices,
right, in reading Leviticus and so forth, life's blood is the blood of atonement. So it has a real important meaning.
Very, very, very symbolic.
Very symbolic, absolutely.
This is fascinating. We're going to be right back in just a minute with more of the Shroud Report. I'm Russ Brialt, and you're watching the Shroud Report, and our guest today has been Dr. Gil Lavoie, and Doctor, this is fascinating stuff. And now you've done a lot of work in the area of the blood and the blood images and the blood flows, and you've brought some slides for us to take a look at some of your research.
Yes.
Okay.
Being a physician, naturally I was inclined to look at the blood marks of the Shroud and try to interpret them and understand them. And I'd like to share some of that with you today.
Okay.
We can look at the first slide here, and we can see that at the left elbow of the man of the Shroud, you'll see a blood mark that actually flows right off of the image. And it goes right from the arm, right off the image, into a round pool. Now, I did not know how that blood mark got there.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I asked all the experts at the time. No one knew. I read the books. No one ever mentioned it. So it fascinated me. For about 3 years, I tried to figure out how that happened. Mm-hmm. One day, I decided to put a replica of the Shroud over me. I had a full-size replica. Mm-hmm. And where that blood mark landed really told me a lot about the Shroud. And I want to share that with you. Now, we'll just go on to the next slide. And here you see the blood mark, which goes right down the arm and is uninterrupted, goes right off of the left elbow, right off of the image, and then pools in a round spot. Now, the slide below that is a tracing that we made of that very same blood mark in order to show you how I interpret this. And in fact, my kids got involved in this with me, and in drawing and so forth, so we had a good time as a family. The very next slide, I take that drawing, and you'll see that I've laid it over an individual on that top slide, and when you look at it from above, you can see that you lose the blood flow. The blood flow cannot be seen, the off-image blood flow cannot be seen when you look at the individual from above. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But when you look at the side view, you see that sheet that has the blood flow actually drapes around the upper arm, and that blood flow literally touches the back of the upper arm. Mm-hmm. Now, the next slide is going to help you to interpret this the best